weed got gentrified, and now
pretty much,
and now it's popular, and then people are just sort of glossing over the fact that a lot of people have been unfairly persecuted because of this. That being said, I would love to try it if they have a veggie burger option.
Well, this is like I said, it's in Denver, which is in Colorado, so it's 100% legal in Colorado right now. Yeah. So that's why it's going to be released there. It's going to be released on 4/20. It's going to be called the Rocky Mountain High Cheeseburger Delight, which will be topped with CBD-infused Santa Fe sauce and sold in one location in Denver for one single day.
Oh, it's just the sauce? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little less blown away because I make my own weed infused sauce as well. I call it my barbecue sauce. It's a damn good barbecue sauce. I will put a stamp on it.
To maybe sell this,
I will not sell it because I will get arrested. maybe if I cover my face in chalk, I might get away with it. But
if it's CBD...
Oh, it's not my one isn't CBD, but that is actually quite good though. That is quite good. But no, I do make a lot of my own edibles.
Interesting.
But I don't bother with brownies because brownies is level 1, and brownies are great as a starter. But I don't really like chocolate that much. So what I wound up doing was, I don't like chocolatey, cakey things.
Yeah.
I don't like thick, rich chocolate. If I want lots of chocolate, I want to just drink it. I'm a big hot chocolate guy. So I made my own weed-infused hot... I made my own. I saw a recipe for it on Munchies, and I made my own as a result, which is way less extravagant, because this guy... I saw this Munchies episode where this guy who just fucking loves chocolate, and he had this really really soft voice when he was talking about all of the beautiful herbal qualities of the cacao. And so he made this cocoa paste, spiced hot chocolate with cardamom and turmeric, and it looked delicious, proper delicious. And he also threw some weed in it. And I did the same. The problem is when you drink your weed, oh lordy.
Yeah, tea is nice.
Yeah, the problem with tea is that because cannabis is oil infused, it absorbs better into things like milk because milk is a lot more fatty.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I would love to make a really good weed tea. But the problem is a weed hot chocolate, or pot chocolate as I like to call it. I'm real proud of that one. I'm so proud of that one, I'm not going to lie.
No, you should be.
That is honestly some of the best things, because just on a cold November, you just drink it and you're done for the day. You flip on your Netflix, you binge watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You're good. And then for the summer, I have my barbecue sauce, which I learned how to make from a cannabis cookbook, which one of my housemates got me for Christmas. And I love the fuck out that sauce, man. It is good shit. And also because it's a sauce and you're only using tablespoons of it, it doesn't get you as faded as the pot chocolate. The pot chocolate, my girlfriend had the pot chocolate, and it was hilarious because she doesn't really smoke as much as I do, and she will only do edibles. And because the pot chocolate was so tasty, I was just have half a mug, and she was a mug and a half in, and she's like, I'm fine, and then just lit. She had the best night of her life. She had so much fun.
Lived her best life.
And what I really wanted to do, so I saw this Cheech and Chong recipe, and it was called Nice Dream Ice Cream, and I really love mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah.
And making a green weed infused mint chocolate chip ice cream for this summer.
That does sound nice. Yeah.
It sounds so good. Yeah, so I need to borrow someone's ice cream maker and make that happen, because honestly that would be amazing. amazing. It would be so good.
So, are you working on any books or anything at the moment?
Yeah, so one thing so I'm doing an epic poem.
Oh.
Worst idea I've ever had.
Is it like just a really long poem?
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically it's a long poem, but it's split into lots of different forms and meters and stuff. So I wanted to be quite experimental about it, because it started off quite simply as like Game of Thrones fan fiction, not gonna lie. But then as I started making my own world for it, it just became more and more distant from that classic medieval fantasy, and then it just became its own thing. So it's set in, a fantasy world where there's, you fancy animals, you fancy this, fancy that, and it's all about, and it all boils down to like 3 different things. There's the first thing, which is a time traveler, and her working name is Krona, but I don't like it. It's just a bit too on the nose. I don't like it. So she is able to just control time at will, quite freely. She's able to do it more specifically and more intricately depending on how much she concentrates. And it's all about, and because like when you have a character like that, they're so overpowered, how do you make a story like that interesting? But then I'm like, you make it interesting by basically having them being so detached from everything, because she is immortal, because she controls time, therefore she just isn't really able to connect with things. She isn't able to like have relationships with people. And so I wanted to like talk about human relationships.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then also the evolution of language as well, because like everyone sort of speaks in a rhyming couplet, but because she has lived so long, she's lived from a time before the world was unified through language, and therefore she's the only person who speaks in free verse.
Huh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The second major character is a former mercenary called Karen, and that is where like the interesting like rules of magic come, because his entire tribe he comes from like a whole family and a whole tribe of mercenaries called the Red Sands, and they basically deal with blood magic.
Huh, cool.
But the way in which he deals with blood magic is so basically whenever usually like a Red Sand dies, they sort of forge their bodies, like parts of their bodies, into various weapons for their next of kin. So he has a sword which is basically forged with the ashes of his mother.
Okay.
And basically I spent a lot of time on YouTube learning about how to like make swords to be like, you can actually forge steel using human ashes, because that's how you get the carbon in order to turn iron to steel.
Okay.
Yeah. So like there's the whole science. I tried to make sure it was as legit as possible. And then the third sort of character is what is known as the Sorcerer's Guild. And the Sorcerer's Guild is essentially an organization that has monopolized all magic in the world. They're essentially part university, part UN, United Nations, and they basically will go about like making sure that improper uses of magic, aka witchcraft, is dealt with.
Fair.
And also that they learn about all of the other less orthodox forms of magic, like blood magic and things. And so it has its own magic system, which I really believe in. Like always, I really believe very strongly in hard magic systems, because if you have a magic system with rules, even if it's something as simple a rule as the strength of your magic comes from training and concentration, and if you break concentration, the spell fails, and being able to maintain concentration whilst you're doing a bunch of other things, that is a sign of a good magic user.
Yeah.
That I really like. And that's what I've been spending like the last 5 years perfecting.
Okay.
So far it's like 250 something pages.
Oh wow.
It's not finished yet. It's not even close to being.
It's crazy. Like I haven't Epic poems is like when I typed in different types of poems because I was curious. I saw it and I was like, that just...
It's so much work. So much work.
So is it kind of in a sense like, I guess like a story, and because you're saying you have different characters, so would you do it like, but it's still...
So some of it, that's the thing. It depends on where you are in the story because... Okay. For instance, like the first part of the story is told through the eyes of the time traveler, first person. So therefore, like the first book, because I basically separated it into various books. So the first book is the time traveler's part, and that's all in free verse. Part 2 is when you get introduced to the mercenary Karen, and that is all told in rhyme. And then between those books, you then have like actual chapters of like prose text, which is basically just the history of the world. And they're just info dumps, but they're told through the perspective of, you know, members of the Sorcerer's Guild. And just over time, you start to realize just what the Sorcerer's Guild is actually doing in this world. And then you start to doubt whether or not their presence in the world is actually truly beneficial.
Okay. Have you thought about kind of maybe turning this into a play or a theatre piece? Or...
I've thought of different things, like I've tried asking like quite a few illustrators like what their commission prices are, is because once I've finished this, what I really want to do is just get illustrations put in, because one of my friends, when he read it, he was like, this is really great, but it needs illustrations. Like I need illustrations for certain landmarks, I need illustrations for certain characters, I just need illustrations to really like bump up the world building of the place. But like
maybe a graphic novel then?
I'm thinking a graphic novel, but the thing is, a graphic novel it's a huge investment, plus it would really alter the current state that it's in right now. So for now, I think it's just going to be like an epic poem, and every 30 to 50 pages you have an illustration of something that's going on. If the scene is particularly difficult to wrap your head around. Like, so sense. In one of the later chapters, there's basically this sort of battle at sea during a storm, and there are like sea monsters who are also part of the sea as well. So they're like machinations of the water. And like that's quite difficult for me to write. So if I actually had a means of showing that whilst you read it, it would really help with the visualness.
That's true, yeah.
And on top of writing that, I'm also trying my best to work on a Ghanaian cookbook.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's weird, like, that started off just with my friend's dad, and we were just talking about it because he knows a publisher, and he was like, there aren't really many Ghanaian cookbooks out in the market. And I was about to get ready to I had like an overview of what I wanted to do. But the problem is, one, I haven't been to Ghana in a couple of years, but I'll get to that in a bit. But also, this other lady called Zoe something wrote a Ghanaian cookbook which sort of beat me to market, called Zoe's Ghana Kitchen. But luckily, what she did with her cookbook is very different from what I wanted to do. So what she did was she actually made like a bunch of recipes which had like a Ghanaian aspect to them, but you could do them, you could get, all your ingredients from Tesco's or whatever. But what I want to do is something a bit more like bare bones, and actually really like fully invested in the culture and the history of Ghana. And almost I kind of want to do it as a love letter to Ghanaian women, because like the amount of stuff they do just for food and like the promotion of food in general is really interesting. Like the fact that even though there are all of these recipes and all of these recipes within Ghanaian cuisine, very little of it is written down, and all of it is just told basically through spoken words. But what you then realize is a lot of Ghanaian history is told through the oral tradition as well. So then you end up just really So I really wanted to like have that, and I wanted to just also have something which was just unapologetically Ghanaian.